Hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to the third and final episode of Digital Marketing for Busy People, which we're really happy to say is a partnership between us at Birdie and the team at Lottie. We'll be focusing on setting the right rates and communicating your value. If you joined us for the first two episodes, you'll know that the first was about getting found online, kind of SEO, setting up your profile on Google. Our second was about like making a website that actually convinces people to reach out and see if they want to work with you. And we thought this final episode would be like that final stage of the journey, which is, well, pardon me, how do you set rates that will actually make somebody want to like book and confirm that you might be the right person? Of course, rates aren't all of it, but we know they're a very important part of the picture. Very quick bit of housekeeping before I introduce myself and introduce Tom. We're recording this session now, and we'll share that recording with you immediately afterwards, or sorry, in the next day or two afterwards. Please do pop any questions you have straight into the chat, and we'll flash them up later for our short, quick Q&A section at the end. And yeah, we'll be sending through a follow-up with any links as well as this recording. Who are we? Hello, my name is Simran. I'm the content and community lead here at Birdie, which basically means I look after our webinars, our social channels, and kind of all of the resources that we put out into the world to try and be like as helpful as we can be. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, Tom from Lottie. I've been at Lottie for 2 years, and we've been about for 4 years. And I basically look after pretty much everything home care related at Lottie. So looking after our partners, making sure they're connecting to the right families through our platform, and also bringing partners as well. So yeah, everything home care at Lottie is me.
Wonderful. So, Tom, could you tell us a little bit more about Lottie?
So Lottie, like I said, started 4 years ago. Two brothers, Chris and Will Donnelly. And Chris had he scaled a big digital marketing business in his bedroom as a teenager, did really well. You might have seen him all over LinkedIn and TikTok, and he had Deborah Meaden on his podcast recently. So he's great at marketing, and his brother Will has spent his whole life in care. So the two of them formed Lottie 4 years ago with those two specialities. What does Lottie do? Essentially, if you're a care provider, home care provider, you join Lottie to connect with more families. You want more private clients, and that's basically what we do. We connect you with people looking for care who are self-funded primarily. And if you're a person looking for care, then you go to Lottie and you know that you find the best quality options available in your area. So we're not a directory of every option. We're like a curated selection of providers that Lottie backs by in your area.
Oh, sorry, here's a little preview of the
Lottie. We'll be going on that shortly as well, so I'll show you around. But very pink, as you probably noticed from my hoodie as well, nice and colourful. And then the next bit is found by Lottie. Not to overcomplicate things, but we have Lottie, which is a care discovery website where people look for care providers. And then we have found by Lottie. This is just for you. This is just for providers. It's think HubSpot, Zoho, Salesforce, think CRM, but specifically built for home care and care. So you would use this to manage your inquiries, automations, following up, sending text reminders about assessments, all your premium reporting and understanding what's going on in your business. It makes sure that no inquiries get lost and that you're following up and helping with all your processes. So I'll be touching on a bit more about that later. But yeah, that's Lottie and then Found.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And sorry, there's a preview of Found. Wonderful. And very, very quickly, if you've not heard of who we are at Birdie, I'll give you a quick introduction to us and then we'll get straight into the meat of today's section. So who are we? The way we see it, we provide technology for home care, first and foremost. The way we see it is that like as things get harder and harder in the sector, we've reached a point where it's not just about working harder, it's about working like as smartly as you can. We're there to try and make that as easy as possible, to give you the best operations, the clearest visibility across everything, and to make sure that everybody is connected. So whether that's like carers, family members, everyone involved. So we know that the first round of technology that you see is a kind of like adaptation from paper, right? So if the first stage was paper, that first generation of kind of technology providers basically turned paper into something you see on a screen. We're trying to take it or we hope we've managed to take things to another level, which is to a level of smart care. Something that like gives you real powerful capabilities, something that allows you to get everything and everyone working together, something that allows you to see everything and miss absolutely nothing, and also something that allows you to feel supported. That's why, for example, we also run Flock, which is like a free social network for anyone working anywhere in the social care sector. We have a whole range of products, apps, and three big promises, but we won't get into all of those right now. Let us just dive into what we're really here for, which is how do you set the right rate and communicate your value. So, Tom, could you launch us straight into tip number one?
Hey, so tip number one is no more mystery shopping, and by that I mean by phoning providers, right? So I'm sure we've all been there, or you've all been there. You want to know what your local other providers, your competitors, if you like, are charging. And I think historically, it's almost created quite almost, I hate to say the word toxic culture, but no one likes it, right? Because you're getting calls all the time from providers pretending to look for care, taking up your team's time. They're trying to find out your pricing, and then obviously you're curious to see what they're charging as well. So Lottie is a care discovery website. We're actually the first platform to make all providers be very transparent about what they charge. And it's funny because I speak to so many providers all day in, day out, every week. And even providers that are using Lottie to win more private clients don't even realize that they can use Lottie to figure out what everyone's charging in their area as well. So yeah, have a look. Obviously, we're a curated marketplace, so you won't see every single provider in your area, but you'll get a real rough understanding by looking on Lottie. So what I'm going to do is very quickly share my screen here. Is that sharing, Simran? Yeah, looks like it is. So we're on Lottie. What you can do today, and this is actionable, you can do right now. Click on home care instead of care home, because we're split between care home care, retirement living, and type in a postcode. So let's just put in a random North London postcode. So if I search for hourly care, let's do hourly first. I can now see out of the 14 providers that we're currently supporting in this area to get more private clients, I can see at a glance what they're charging. They're starting from pricing for hourly care. So Sweet Tree Home Care, outstanding provider, they've got a £30 per hour. We've got 25, 30, 28. It's just this would, take hours of calling and trying to pretend you're looking for care and vice versa. I can see like the Helping Hands and the Home Instead are both charging £36 an hour. So have a little look. Also, you can do it by different care types. So if I was to change and look for living care instead, and here are the 21 providers we're supporting for living care in this area. You can see, look, Sweet Tree are charging £209 per day, starting from Trinity are charging £235. And all these companies are, they know and they're happy, and this is part of being on Lottie, is that they are sharing their pricing. And I think it kind of gets rid of I think we're all kind of like, look, we know that the prices aren't too dissimilar. There's like two kind of camps that we see on Lottie. So the first camp is, let's say for hourly care, we're seeing around £25 to £28 is camp A, and that's more like your value pricing providers. And then we're seeing other camps which are £30 to £35 plus. So really, it's kind of figuring out which camp are you sitting in at the moment. Are you competing with the local Home Instead Helping Hands at 35? Are you competing with the providers that are maybe charging 28? And then you can kind of cancel the rest out in your mind. These are the providers that we are matching their price. Now you start thinking what is beyond price that sets us apart. So yeah, no more mystery shopping. Jump on Lottie, have a look at what people are charging. Also, reach out to us as a team. We've got loads more data behind the scenes that you don't see on Lottie. So I've got a dashboard here, for example. The average price in the past 30 days on Lottie is £29.39 for hourly care. That's across England, Scotland, Wales, everything. For living care, it's £212 is the average across the whole marketplace. So again, use what you can on Lottie, but reach out to us as well, and we can even help you with your stuff you can't see. That's tip
That's,
one.
that's so interesting. Thank you so much, Tom. I guess I think it's something that we're often trying to support people in doing at Birdie too, which is like getting access to data and making those numbers actually easy to use and relevant. And it sounds like Lottie's got that all like set up so clearly, like literally just in the interface when you're searching for care in your area. Brilliant, thank you. Let's get into tip number two.
So this one is about CRM holds the answer. So is price really your problem? And how tracking all your inquiries that you're losing actually reveals all. And oftentimes, what you think in your gut isn't necessarily what the data shows. So you might think, oh, this marketing channel does really well for me, or leaflet dropping does really well for me. Or you might think that I'm losing most of my inquiries because of this reason or that reason. But when you actually track everything, it can tell a different story. And we have this all the time at Lottie. We'll think one thing's working when actually we look at the data and it's not how we thought. So there are loads of, I think most providers, we know are using paper inquiry forms. They're using spreadsheets in terms of, this is like not when you're at the Birdie stage, but before Birdie, when you just got an inquiry, you're managing where you're up to. So let's say you've got an inquiry from Amali who lives around the corner, and you are wanting to follow up with Amali and make sure that you've called him, a couple of times. So usually people are using spreadsheets to keep on top of where in that stage Amali's up to. With a CRM, you can basically make sure that no inquiry is ever lost. So you hold yourself and your team accountable to making sure that you're nurturing every single inquiry. And also, if you lose an inquiry, you have a really good understanding as to why. And if you do that over time, your reporting becomes really, really helpful. So I'm going to share my screen again, and this is Found. So this is our CRM, which I mentioned at the beginning. We have Found Pro, which is the big singing, dancing paid version with all the funky stuff. But if you join Lottie for free, we give you like a starter version of this. So you can actually, you can get off spreadsheets today, get off paper inquiry forms. And with the starter pack that you get free with Lottie, you can use it not just to manage your Lottie inquiries, but you can manage inquiries from any source. So you can add manual inquiries from any source, whether that be a coffee morning or a walk-in even. So let's say, for example, I don't know, Mr. Derek Bergstorm, what a name. This is all fake data on my demo account. But, I'm working Derek through my kind of pipeline, if you like. And let's say that I did an assessment with Derek, but ultimately he said that it's the pricing, that, we charge too much. And, throughout working with Derek on the timeline, I've got all my emails and every time I've done a phone call and my notes from the team. So I've got a really understanding of what's led to that point where Derek has said, that pricing is the issue here. So what I would do is I would close this inquiry, top right, and I would say, not ready to progress to conversations. So you could say mystery shopper, for example. Requirements not met. So for this example, I'm going to put we're too expensive. So I'm now closing this inquiry. And what this means is if I start to now, over time, go into my reporting, if I go on close loss reasons, I can actually say, let's zoom out a bit. So not the past 30 days, we're rounding up 2025. Let's look at this year. I haven't got loads of data in my demo account, so you would probably have more than this, but I can see at a quick glance the reasons why we're actually losing inquiries. And what I would say is you can also break this down by marketing channel. So you might say, hang on, when it comes to our homecare.co.uk inquiries, we're losing because of pricing all the time. When actually with other channels, we're not losing to pricing. So do we want to be spending more on that marketing channel because actually types of families we're connecting with, the pricing isn't for them? So you can make those informed decisions about where you're putting your marketing budget based on, is pricing actually the issue, or is it the marketing channel that's actually connecting with people where for them the pricing is the issue? So that's why it's really important tracking while you're losing inquiries. And what I would say is if you're not seeing pricing coming up as an objection enough, then are you pricing enough, basically? So I think you should be getting objections for pricing. And if you're not getting too many, then you're probably not charging enough. So again, it's like looking at what other providers are charging in your area, making sure you're competing at the same level. And if you're not seeing pricing coming up enough, then maybe you're not charging enough. And if you are seeing pricing come up way too much on your reporting here, then at least you know that that's a data-led decision rather than just a gut instinct. So yeah, that's kind of this tip wrapped up, is the power of using a CRM. They can be super expensive. Also, a lot of them aren't built for care, so they're a headache to look into. But there are ways, such as joining Lottie and getting a free version of Found, for you to be able to track that as well.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for all of that, Tom. I love what you. I just really want to draw out that point you made right at the end there, which is that if you aren't getting objections to your pricing, maybe you're doing something wrong, which I think is like such a useful perspective, rather than thinking, oh my God, as soon as you get any type of objection, that's a sign that there is something wrong. Um, and I love that having like a clear oversight of your data, whether that's through Lottie CRM or whatever systems people might be using at the moment. Although I see so much how like Found can make that so much easier. It sounds like such a really, really interesting way to be using all the information you have at your disposal to really make the best business decisions, and try and get any wins that you absolutely can. I can see a couple of great questions coming through in the chat as well. And what we'll do is we'll have our third and final tip, and then we'll get straight into that Q&A. So thank you so much, Tom, and over to tip number 3.
So I'd say like the other two tips I live day in, day out, so I have a lot of familiarity with. I would say this is probably the area where you're definitely the experts, and you are speaking to potential clients all day, every day, and you're understanding what that conversations are like when you're trying to explain your pricing. But this is from like all the providers that I talk to, all the secondhand comments and experience that I've gathered. So really it's about kind of not defending your prices and being really confident about it. So if you've done the other two steps before, for example, that you offer the same level of service as your local this and your local that branch. You know what they charge because you found that out via Lottie as an example. So you say this is what care costs for this level of care in this area, essentially. But what you're doing is actually you're leading with evidence first. So I would always go to Home Care Association. So whether you say we're a member of the Home Care Association, or you say, I don't know if you know about the Home Care Association, they are, and then you explain a bit about them. If you don't know, which I'm sure you all do, but every year they announce what care should cost in the UK. So you can quote to them that in the UK for 2026, care should cost £32.14, and that's if everyone's getting paid fairly. It's a healthy way of running your business. Now, we know a lot of providers aren't charging that much because obviously there's the fear that if they charge that much, then they won't get the clients that they need to. So, but you can use that as a benchmark. So you say, look, this is a third party body outside of home care providers, and they really look at what care costs for your family member to receive the best quality care, for us to attract the best quality carers, to keep them healthy, keep them happy, so that the care that you receive is the best quality. So it's kind of, rather than defending your own prices, look to other providers, say this is the scene, this is the landscape in the area for what care costs at this level. And we all agree that this is a similar price. We also, that's backed up by Home Care Association, and say, I can send you loads of really interesting breakdowns after this chat about like that. They have like a breakdown, which I could share very quickly here, which just shows, whether it be the 52p training costs per the hour, or the 20p insurance. And you can maybe not on the phone call go through all this, but again, it's like resources that you're giving them access to for them to like better understand, and they go, actually, that makes sense. And then you might say, well, obviously there are introductory carers, and I'm sure you might come across them, which do charge less. But what I can share afterwards is the difference, why it costs more, because of everything that we pour into making sure that the care is premium quality. And I would also lead with the idea that the human costs involved. So you're always starting off with, what is the cost of like worrying at the moment about your loved one, the cost of not sure if the provider, if you've gone with slightly more, value has been the focus in your pricing options, is kind of, getting them to think about what is the cost that they're currently spending on managing the care themselves, and think about what they'll be getting back from being the peace of mind of being that the care is actually a premium quality and that they've made the right choice. So yeah, always lead with like independent evidence outside of what you're saying. Home care stations, great way to do that. Other providers in your area, be offering the same quality care, and that's just how it is, the landscape. Before the cost, obviously, for them as a family member worrying, and then start to differentiate on your unique strengths. So like before, when we realized that actually there's two camps, there's this A camp, B camp for pricing. It's like, look, we're in camp B, premium care, but this is actually what makes us different. So we all charge the same pretty much in this area for this level of care. And then you can then have the conversation about what sets you apart and what makes you unique. So that's the order I would recommend doing it in. And that's tip 3.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tom. I feel that that's so clear as a real plan of action. So just to make sure, like I fully understood, start with like external data that basically nobody can argue with, like those recommendations / numbers from the Home Care Association. That's all publicly available. Maybe we can pop a link to that in the chat, or we'll make sure to send that through in the follow up as well, so everyone will have access to that. Follow up by kind of looking really closely at like what's going on with your competitors and sort of seeing where you fit in the picture with them. Just as we talked about in tip 1, like using publicly accessible information like on Lottie, as well as any tips that the Lottie team might be able to share if you're working with Lottie too. And then finally finding what your differentiations really might be between you and those specific agencies who are in the same camp as you, rather than trying to kind of fight every single possible agency, really looking at people who are in the same like camp of pricing, and then saying, hey, this is what sets us apart. Brilliant. Thank you so much. And we've got a little bit of time for some questions. I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat, and the team has also chucked in a couple of really common questions that we often get in the subject matter, which I'd love for us to touch into as well. Let me just have a look at those questions. So first, let me flash this one up. Tom, how often would you say it's a good idea for an agency to review and adjust their rates?
So we every month ask people to update, just to make sure, because maybe it's been a couple of months since they've actually updated it with Lottie. So in terms of updating it for your own business, I don't have as much closeness to that, but in terms of like Lottie, we do check in every month to make sure that we've got an up-to-date record. Also, all calls through Lottie are tracked by our call intelligence. So what we have notifications if we hear providers are quoting different prices than what's listed on our things. We'll reach out and say, would you like us to update that for you to save you having to do it yourself? So in terms of how often as a business, I'm not as close to that, but I know that, yeah, every month we like to make sure that is up to date.
That sounds really sensible. And I guess just making sure that you have some kind of cadence and some kind of rhythm to regularly reviewing this, whatever it might be for like your area or your sector, especially using the sort of information that Lottie can provide as well, for sure. I'm going to flash up one other question, which I know we've touched on, but I'd love to see if you have any further thoughts on this, which is like, what do you say when a client says, hey, you're more expensive than X competitor, and it looks like they're providing a similar service, say?
Yeah, again, it's not something that I'm as close to, but what I would say is always lead with, never say they're not very good or they're rubbish, right? It's always, yeah, and they're definitely a great option. We get on well with that team. It's that kind of, people like to think we're all in this together, right? It's all about care. So there is never lead with, saying bad things about another company. They're a great option, and what they do well is this. The thing is, what we focus on, which from what I've heard from our conversations is really important to you, is this. And so it's kind of like that more consultative thing. It's like tracking every single thing and listening to single thing they're saying, so that you can lead with why they're great, but in terms of what you're really specifically after, I think this is why we're a really good match. And again, like if everything's on spreadsheets and paper forms, it can be hard to log exactly everything you're learning about that person. But if you're using a CRM and you're able to have a list of all that information from the calls previously, you can then actually better understand why you're the best fit for them. So yeah, never slander anyone else. We're all in this together, but say they do this really well, but what we do really well specifically, which matches what you've been discussing with me, is this.
Mm, that's a really, really strong formula to just to like reflect that back. It's something like just like be honest about the fact that yeah, we are all in this together in the care sector, rather than kind of making it look like you're in opposition. Second, like yeah, name something that other care agency does do well to really evidence that and show that you're not just kind of there's real substance behind what you're saying. And then finally, really come through and using your understanding of what that person wants, show how that aligns with what it is that you have to offer. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Tom. And I think we've got time for one or two last questions. One or two, there's a couple coming in that are Lottie specific. Let me have a look. One coming in here. So let me just flash this sorry, one sec. What is the criteria prioritization that Lottie uses to send leads to agencies? Could you tell us a bit more about the mechanics of exactly how Lottie connects potential new clients with agencies?
It's a really good question. We onboard all providers that are not yet inspected, good and outstanding, so not requires improvement. And we have a lot of providers who are not yet inspected who are worried about not getting inquiries through Lottie because they're not yet inspected. And actually, if you reach out to me after this call, I can connect you with so many providers who have done incredibly well through Lottie who are not yet inspected, don't even have a website. And the reason why is, yes, on the ranking, it is done via CQC. However, the majority of our inquiries come through our matchmaking process through the chatbot. So like 75% come through that. And when we pair the family with three providers at the end, so it's a maximum of three, it's randomized based on the providers that we have eligible in that area. So what that means is regardless of anything, if you tell us that you can support that person in the area and they meet your criteria, all our referrals are evenly distributed over time. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're afraid of not getting any inquiries, and because we charge per inquiry, if we didn't connect you with any families, you wouldn't pay anything through Lottie. So it's up to us to make sure you're getting the inquiries to get value from Lottie. But yeah, I've got providers who don't even have a website, just started off, who've done really well. So it's randomized to keep things fairly distributed, basically.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Tom. It's so great to hear like a little bit more about exactly how Lottie works. It sounds like just such a brilliant service for I mean almost any agency in the sector. I think it's something that we're so excited about here at Birdie as well, seeing people doing this really exciting work just to try and equip and resource people to thrive, like as businesses, as well as in the way that they're providing top quality care. So some final little bits of housekeeping, just to say the full recording from this session alongside any extra links and resources will be coming through today or tomorrow. Do check out the recordings of episodes 1 and 2. Maybe we could even pop that in the chat, or we'll send that through afterwards. You can find those all on the Birdie website and on our YouTube channel as well, on Getting Found Online and on building a website that really convinces people to work with you. And then finally, if you think that Birdie or Lottie really might be able to help, do come to Birdie's website, birdie.care, or Lottie's website, lottie.org. Maybe we'll pop those in the chat as well and see if we could be a fit. We could give you some more information about all of the services that each of us offer. Other than that, thank you so much, Tom, first and foremost, for everything you've shared about like setting those prices and communicating that effectively, and for telling us a bit more about Lottie as well. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Have a lovely rest of your week.
Thanks, Imran. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.